Your true name.
Say it!
Become the key. Anung. Unrama. Repeat it. Anung. Unrama.
Hey, yo, friends. What the hell is going on? Happy In Madness Monday, if that is indeed when you are listening. This is episode 40. In Madness Pod. Shawn the Butcher, Vertebrae33. What's going on?
Shawn, how are you? How's everything?
Everything
okay?
is no, I'm insanely stressed out. It has been a hell of a day so far, and I'm very happy that I get to take this time to finally chill out and relax with you and go through the finale of episode 40 for Hellboy. But I'm all right. I'm looking forward to this episode more so than I was to the rest of my morning.
That's awesome. And for me, I listened back to part one and there's a ton of backstory. This is not as heavy on the backstory. I don't have as many gnarly bits for this because we laid out the framework, but I do want to hear more about your opinion on this film, and we can do it after we get through the whole film, and just your opinion on Hellboy in general. And I'm excited to go through it. For the life of me, you're going to tell everybody. I can't remember where we left off, but you're going to eventually tell everybody.
Yes. Well, welcome to the premiere podcast on the socials at In Madness Pod, inmadnesspod@gmail.com. I know what we're going to do for our next episode for our 0.5, which we were just discussing off air a second ago. We got some emails in our inmadnesspod@gmail.com email. Nice. We will dip into the mail sack on the next episode. Check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, give us the 5-star reviews. Check out the In Madness Spotify playlist, which is just blowing up all over the world with hits from Britney Spears to the Dillinger Escape Plan to Whitney Houston. It's just all over the place. There's nothing like it. All of the songs relevant to this podcast, they were brought up in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Check out the In Madness Spotify playlist. Spread the madness to everybody you know. Tell everybody you know about this show. Vertebrae was just telling me the numbers are growing. We are watching the mountain of In Madness rise, and everybody getting into this podcast slowly and telling your family members and your friends and perhaps even your enemies, making them become friends through In Madness. You can get your shirt at inmadness.com. We got awesome shirts. We might have some new merch that Vertebrae just randomly texted me. But for now, what mug do you have for this episode?
So I did it. I've never done this before, but it's just a repeat mug. It's the Hellboy mug from the first episode because I didn't have another Hellboy mug. I can't find the BPRD mug. I was going to buy one just for this episode, and I was like, you know what? It's fine. Nobody's clocking this. I'm repeating the mug. Deal with it. If you don't want me to repeat mugs, then send me another Hellboy mug, and I'll use that when we go over, part 2. But Shawn, I wanted to mention a few things before we jump back into Hellboy. And we glossed over, I had mentioned Robert Bloch, the writer, early on. We were talking about kind of the gnarly bits they had in the beginning. And I totally missed this. And I didn't miss it. I just forgot to say it. But he wrote Psycho, Robert Bloch. So he does all of this Lovecraftian stuff. And then he goes on to write Psycho. I think 59 maybe came out. I'm not sure. But we'll eventually get to Psycho. Maybe on this podcast.
Soon. I feel like,
and then I'm definitely going to need to read Psycho or listen to it because I've never. So I'm very curious about that. But the other thing was key changes between the story. We touched on the comic changes a little bit. So this is based off of Seed of Destruction, Mignola. I forgot to mention that it was co-written by John Byrne. So he famously wrote a lot of X-Men comics, Fantastic Four, Hulk, and then he goes to DC and does Batman, has a big run on Superman. So that's a big deal. It has a little bit of a different feel to it than some of the other stories. It's a little wordier than some of the other Hellboy stories because I think that Mignola went along, with him and for writing it. But it's very interesting that kind of happens at that moment, especially for Mignola in his career, and it just shows you kind of how big people figured he would be by just seeing some work he had done for DC and I think Marvel as well, but mostly DC in the past. The other thing was Liz's relationship with Hellboy, and in the comic, I forgot to mention this in part 1. They find her as a child, and they're just like almost like a brother and sister relationship. So this whole love thing, and we're going to get into it more, doesn't exist in the comics. That's a Del Toro ad, as is John Myers. Broom's death is in the comic in the beginning. I had mentioned that we get to know him, but then it's sad. But the thing is we do see him in other comics, flashback books, and they go into history of Hellboy in there as well. He dies at the hand of the plague of frogs, so it goes down a little differently. So they tried to connect it up, Del Toro, more to the story. I think it would have been pretty weird to introduce the plague of frogs into this film that we need the general public to watch. And then when he's born, or when Hellboy comes through the portal, he appears not at the location with Rasputin, but instead he appears at a ruined church in England, and that's where they find him instead. So that's interesting. The comics too are a lot darker than this story on screen. And the last thing is BPRD, and there's a whole series of BPRD comics. They are much more competent and much more on the ball in the comics than they are in the movie. Everyone plays second fiddle to Hellboy in this movie, including Abe and Liz. And she's pretty dominant throughout the books and has her own team and everything. And the BPRD are just more, it's not just, we brought this young guy to bring you pancakes and this other guy's going to get shot in the sewer or whatever. It's much more. There's even like kind of like a superhero guy that's involved with it. And they're just more doing their own thing and kind of the best of the best. We don't get that with this. We sort of get everyone to be, or it feels like everyone's Hellboy's lackey. Even Abe, which he has his own solo comics and everything too. But that's interesting. I mean, they gotta do what they have to do to make it a movie. I did watch the making of documentary, which I'd watched before. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's very cool in that it shows a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but it sort of feels very unedited because they just kind of trail on and show a lot of talk, but they show all the models they make and them doing stunt practice and all the suits they built and all the practical effects that they did. They go through your favorite scene, Shawn, when he punches the car and it flies in the air, and they use like a real car to flip around and stuff. They call that like the West Side Highway scene, which is really interesting because if you know New York, right, there's no buildings on one side of it. It's just the water. But it's a really cool documentary. I can't help but wonder, though, Mignola and Del Toro kind of had a little bit of a falling out for a period of time, and I think they've patched things up. But when you watch this documentary, it's very much Mignola being like, oh, well, that's his world, and Del Toro can interpret it the way he feels, and I think that's great, and he's all on board. And then when we get to part 2, he's not as on board, I think, with some of the changes that he's making, or they did butt heads on part 1, but they just don't project that forward. But I think they've patched things up since then. But I'm excited to go into part 2 with you. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Let's go for it.
Just to recap from part 1, I mean, Vertebrae already dropping massive spoilers in his prelude monologue. We didn't even get to some parts of the things he talked about. Some Splinter-esque scenes. We got Nazis combining science and black magic to take back control of the war. Rasputin has returned from the dead and is working for Hitler with Hitler's top assassin, who I'm calling Gas Mask. Rasputin opens a portal which births Hellboy, who is cared for by Professor Broom, who works at the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, along with who I'm calling Fishman and Liz, who we're about to learn a lot more about. They're all monster hunters, led by Hellboy. Accompanying Hellboy is his new assistant, Agent John Myers. Boo, John Myers, who everybody hates. Hellboy is fed regularly with large meals and sometimes large Baby Ruth bars. I didn't get my Baby Ruth bar for the episode. I'm sorry. Did you?
Me neither.
We suck. We suck.
Why do we promise things in part 1 that we don't?
If you're listening, I hope you're eating your Baby Ruth bar while listening to this episode. He also grinds his devil horns down to little nubs to appear normal. They get an emergency emergency call to report to a library there's been a break-in. An evil entity has been released, a hellhound. Hellboy fights it out with the hellhound using his enormous gun. However, it is a hound of resurrection. It also kind of looks and bleeds like Predator. Hellboy manages to destroy the beast, but it ends up birthing more beasts. Now Hellboy is on his way to visit his girl Liz, who he has a crush on, who recently left the bureau. Fishman is inspecting the scene of the crime where the hellhound was released, and that's where we left you on our last episode.
Awesome. Yeah, ignore all the spoilers I gave you guys.
I mean, I was paying such intently close attention. Professor Broom says to Fishman, "Show me what happened." Fishman holds Broom's hand, and Broom can see the past that happened where they are standing. Right before the monster broke out, we see a guard checking the room. Above him, we see a spy creeping around, crawling down the wall, kind of like Spider-Man. It's Gas Mask. Behind him is Rasputin's lady, Ilsa. She takes a huge sledgehammer and smashes the glass casing around this ancient statue. The alarms go off. Guards are coming. Gas Mask uses his blades to slice the statue in half. Ilsa extracts this giant salt shaker looking thing from the statue, and Gas Mask attacks all the guards. Out walks Rasputin and tells Ilsa, "Ready the welcome." She opens the salt shaker, pours it out. Rasputin says it's salt gathered from tears of 1,000 angels holding the essence of Samael, the Hellhound. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. Tears of 1,000 Angels should be like a metal band.
That's
right. Tears of 1,000
or like
Angels.
an album
song.
title.
Yeah, or an album title. Yeah. That's what is my band name again? Micro Changes in Air Density.
In Air Density. Yeah.
Our first album is Tears of 1,000 Angels.
Yeah, that's sick. We got to write all this down. Rasputin exhales some ancient green mist and covers the salt, and it says, "For every hellhound destroyed, 2 shall arise. And from the salt, the hellhound is born." Professor Broom is disturbed to see this vision from the past. He walks away slowly in pain. Fishman can tell Broom is very sick, but Broom doesn't want Hellboy to know.
No. And when they show Abe, or as you're calling him, Fishman's hands, when they did it, a lot of times they'll show that hand extend and the finger kind of like goes a little wider. They built like a animatronic hand that they'll just kind of hold up in front of the actor, in front of Doug Jones, for those scenes, and like cut away, just to have. There's a lot of practical effects in this film, a lot,
which I do love. He tells Fishman 60 years ago they tried to destroy the world. They're back to finish the job. Hellboy's telling Liz he misses her, giving her all the gossip, begging her to come back. She wants no part of it. She doesn't like being at the psychiatric ward, but she says she hasn't had an episode in months. A blue flame rises out of her hand, and she says, "I'm learning to control it." Black car pulls up to scoop up Hellboy. Liz tells him if he really cares, he's going to stop coming back for her. Back at the bureau, Fishman is working on Hellboy's injuries, tell him he got burnt by acid. Broom tells Hellboy he worries about him, then pulls a Master Splinter and says, "I won't be around forever, you know." Uh-oh.
Yeah, come on, Broom. What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? And also, burned by acid. Like acid blood. Huh.
Give me 14 seconds.
Yes.
John Myers extracts the leech thing that suctioned itself to Hellboy from a bag and throws it in a tray, and it's still squirming around. Fishman asks how long it was attached to him. Hellboy says 5 seconds. Fishman says extracts a globule from Hellboy's arm, touched you for 5 seconds, laid 3 eggs. Whoa, that gave me serious alien vibes right there.
Yeah, but like, could you imagine if it was that many eggs, like a xenomorph? Like, it's just the one for a xenomorph. My God, just multiple chest bursters. Holy crap.
Hellboy says, "Didn't even buy me a drink." Fishman tells him the stinger detaches from the tongue and injects the eggs. They are sensitive to heat and light. They breed in humid, dark environments. Broom is concerned. He wants the team to return to the spot tomorrow, find any and all eggs, and destroy them. John Myers is doing further research on Liz, and there was a massive fire, and nobody survived but her. They call her Firestarter. She has pyrokinesis. They put her in the psych ward.
Wait, Sean, so We're gonna play Name That Tune because we're
Yeah.
gonna add this to the Spotify playlist. You
Uh-oh.
ready?
Uh-oh.
Wound up, can't sleep, can't do anything right, little honey. Oh, since I set my eyes on you, I tell you the truth. Ready? Twisting like a flame in a slow dance, baby.
What
Come
the
on. You're
what?
driving me crazy. Come on, little sugar. I think it's Little Sugar, right? Fire. Smoke, she is a rising.
Oh my lord.
Finish it.
What are we adding to the In Madness Spotify playlist? What is this?
The Cult's Firewoman?
Cult Firewoman. Gotcha.
Firewoman, you're to blame.
That's
Firewoman, you're to
before my
blame.
time.
You don't know the Cult's Firewoman? The Cult opened for Metallica
I
on the And Justice for All tour. My favorite
definitely
Metallica
did.
album. Fun facts. You know the Cult Firewoman, no?
Sure.
Oh, man. Oh, that's a bummer. Listen, I just sang the whole beginning of that.
I probably have heard it on the radio, but
Yeah, you probably heard it, but not with my awful singing voice.
no, you did.
I just ruined everybody's commute to
That
work
was
on
great.
Monday.
I love the excitement that Vertebrae has for the Hellboy episode.
I'm trying to bring the heat. I'm already pre-prepping for our next episode.
Honestly, I thought you were gonna do Prodigy Firestarter.
Oh, that's a good one too. Well, Firewoman though, right?
Yeah,
That's very specific.
Yep.
Yeah. And it even refers to her as, she's a rising fire. There we go.
The Phoenix. Her room is pictures of the team all over the place. She says she blacks out for hours after she has an episode. Liz is asleep in bed, and out of the shadows creeps Rasputin. He says his master is calling her name. You must return to the child. So once again, dream of fire. He kisses her forehead, and a symbol on her head begins to glow. She's dreaming of her childhood being chased by young punk-ass kids calling her a freak. They're throwing rocks at her, and she spontaneously combusts, releasing an enormous fireball, scorching all these little punk-ass kids. That was probably going to be my real milking of the alpacas moment, because screw these kids, and I'm glad they got friggin' scorched by her pyrokinesis.
You know what's crazy? Two things. One, I do feel bad for the kids because, yeah, they're being mean. But like all kids are mean. They just get wiped out for being like they made a mistake. Like imagine if you got wiped out for mistakes you made when you were a kid. Holy crap. Like we're not making it past like age 8, probably the two of us. But also like if you know that she's different, I don't know if they know specifically, but they're calling her a freak. There's nothing freakish about her visually. Why would you mess with the girl who can burst into flames? That's a really bad idea. There's no way. I'm going to tell you, Shawn, I couldn't have had that power through my teenage years, getting picked on and stuff. I'd be bursting into flames.
Everything would be on
minutes.
fire. You'd be fireman.
Yeah. I'd just be doing it to get out of a math test. You know what I mean?
Like a song about
school.
you.
Yeah, I didn't study. I didn't practice that algebra. I'll just burst into flames.
Yeah. The school's on fire again.
Again.
Vertebrae didn't study. The same thing happens to Liz now. In bed, her whole room at the asylum is on fire. Liz is on fire. The entire hospital explodes. Back at the bureau, Hellboy is arguing with Broom, asking how many buildings she has to burn down. She belongs with them, and Broom disagrees. That's not how she feels. Yeah. John Myers bringing an enormous plate of bacon and waffles for Hellboy to eat while he's grinding away on his horns. John says he did some research. He thinks he can bring Liz back, and Hellboy gets pissed. And he's like, how did you get this job serving me pancakes? Why are you here? John tells Professor Broom he knows Hellboy doesn't want him there, but Broom insists he's doing fine. Myers
why is he there? Why is he there, Shawn?
Yeah.
Why is he there? He shouldn't be there.
Well, Broom says he's mainly there because Broom is dying. He tells Agent Myers, like any father, I worry about him. Even more of a Splinter Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing we got going on here.
Yeah, except Splinter didn't have some dweeb waiting in the wings to
snatch his spot.
Help him out. Yeah, come on, man.
Well, Broom tells him in medieval stories there is often a young, inexperienced knight, but pure of heart. Have the courage to stand by him when I am gone. Broom is laying it on thick. He had better be dead by the end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if he's not dead by the end of the movie, he just pulled a Splinter.
Yeah, yeah.
Splinter did that like 17 times. Every
Now I
time we
know
talked
how
to
you
him.
felt in our previous tea.
Imagine like going out to a diner with Splinter and he's just like, yeah, I think I'll have the tuna melt, but
I might
we
die.
better order quickly because
Yeah.
I might not be around by the end of this meal.
Splinter, I'm tired of your shit.
Every time you bring it up,
Everything. It's all about the dying, Splinter.
man.
Broom says Hellboy was born a demon, but you will help him become a man. Myers goes to visit Liz. He also seems to have a crush on her. Bomb, bomb, bomb.
The worst. He's the worst.
He tells her Broom invited her back to the bureau. Back in the subway, the team are tracking for eggs. Fishman can feel a pulse on the opposite side of the wall using his fish fingers, and he tells Hellboy the eggs are there. Hellboy punches the wall and we see gas mask. I really dig this part. He's in like a boiler room with like furnaces burning, kind of like Freddy Krueger. He's got his mask off as well as his like detached hand, which he's working on. His face is covered, but he's got these like crazy reptile eyes, which are pretty gnarly.
Yeah, what's crazy too is that like his that's like his workshop, I guess, or something? Like that's his space? Yeah, where's Rasputin hanging out? They're in some like really nice hotel, right? Him
Yeah,
and
some
Ilsa.
schwanky ass. He's got like a throne, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Just like wrapped around his leg.
Yeah, Cronin's getting the short end of the stick here.
Yeah. He's definitely like the Tatsu and like the he's like the jabroni side guy.
He's a crony, Shawn.
Yeah.
Cronin is a crony.
Hey, but he's a badass. He is pretty badass.
He is.
He can whoop a lot of ass, but so can Tatsu. Tatsu is good, good crony as well. He hears Hellboy break the wall down and quickly grabs 2 pieces of paper and chucks them in his pocket. Behind the wall is a huge manhole cover, which Hellboy removes and drops 2 lights into, and we see a hellhound in the water. The lights drop in, and it swims away into this gross-ass green water, and Fishman jumps right in. He finds eggs floating around and puts them in his little pouch, and behind him swims the hellhound. Up top, Agent Clay and his hair plugs talking to Hellboy about his hair plugs until Hellboy turns around and there's Gas Mask watching them. They chase him through the subway tunnels. Fishman finds the mother lode of eggs, but before he can get to it, the hellhound finds them and starts slashing away. Fishman swims away, but the chase is on.
Yeah.
Fishman finds a small enclosure the beast cannot get into, but it whips out this massive tongue thing and tries to snatch him, but it misses. The hellhound swims away, but we see another one swimming behind it. Fishboy is fucked up. Above, he sees an alert. He sends an alert to the rest of the team, and they go to check the manhole cover, and the 2 hellhounds are circling it. So one of the agents brings his space-age gun over to fry him until one of the hounds grabs his face and eats him alive. Sick. The other hellhound chases after the other agent who gets cornered and also eaten.
So, Shawn, before we get further, do you remember when you walked out of this film? Because
yes,
you listened to part 1.
I'll let you.
It's not there yet? So you were still there for this.
I stayed for like, now that I saw the movie, I stayed for like 75% of the film.
Oh, that wasn't much of a protest then. You just waited till you finished your snacks.
Yeah. No, my snacks were done. My snacks are always done before the movie even starts.
That's awesome.
Hellboy finds a gas mask in his lair in the boiler room, but the hellhound finds Hellboy and the fight is back on. They fall into this long ventilation system and come crashing down into an actual subway stop filled with pedestrians. The 2 have this massive brawl in front of everyone. Nowadays, everybody would have their phone out taking crystal clear pictures of what's happening.
Yes.
The practical effects in this are pretty sick because it's real things in the subway fighting with people reacting to like something that's actually there.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix of practical and CG effects, and then we're gonna hit one of the goofiest moments in the film right now.
Hellhound smashes a pillar that dumps an entire section of subway right on top of Hellboy, who rises out of the wreckage, and the two continue fighting. I feel like some of the noises this Hellhound makes are very similar to the Velociraptor noises in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah. Huh.
You mentioned the Wilhelm scream, and I'm like, they must have like a Velociraptor, like monster noise that they
Oh,
just
I
use
wonder. We
for
should look that
monsters.
up. They probably
Yeah.
do.
In the middle of the fight, this woman's like, "My kittens,
Hmm.
please save my kittens." And for some reason, there's a big box of kittens in the middle of the subway.
For some reason, this woman is carrying a wooden box. Let's just say, too, like a wooden box of kittens in the subway. It's insanely goofy. It's very comic book sticky joke. You know, like, oh, we happen to have like, here comes this car chase, and now there's a big pane of glass, and people are walking across the street with this big pane of glass.
And it's
Like,
one of the streets that goes downhill, so when they go fast, they have to jump off the top and
yeah,
bounce on the
this
floor. Yeah,
this is not needed at all. And he's so fully exposed now that there's no way,
there's no denying it.
there's no denying that he exists. Cell phones, no cell phones. There's so many people around. There's so many reports, people with cameras. This is just a little silly. In the comics, things are much more in the shadows. It's a little darker. Hellboy even has sort of this rough relationship with humanity because he kind of always wants to fit in with humanity, and we get a little bit of in the film, but he's a little goofier in the film than he is in the comic. But this part is this takes me out a little bit of this cool fight scene, the box of kittens. If this was the part you walked out of the theater, I'd have been
Nah,
like, okay. I would have been like, okay.
Hellboy's like, "Ah, great." He goes to save the kittens because he also has a thing for cats. And the Hellhound
Yeah.
shoots out its massive tongue, grabs Hellboy grabs it and says, second date, no tongue."
Very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right
And
there.
whips the monster around into a subway tunnel. And as it's pulling on Hellboy, a train comes and clobbers the Hellhound.
Yeah,
Below,
now Hellboy's just in this train station with tons of people just staring at.
signing autographs and shit.
Yeah.
Below, Fishman crawls out of the gross water. He's all torn up, but he's still being followed by the Hellhounds. Fishman signals his tracker, but Clay, with his hair plugs, is lost in the subway corridor and now is spotted by Gas Mask, who immediately stabs the shit out of him.
Yeah, and he shoots. So Clay shoots him, and we see just sand coming out of Cronin, which is you figure how much sand is in there if you shoot him enough, right? Can't you just empty all the sand out? This spot, Shawn, this should have been the death of John Myers.
See, and that's where
Not,
in our first episode when we were talking, when
Uh-huh.
you were like, he needs to be eliminated. I'm like, it's this scene right here is where Clay should have survived and John
Right.
Myers should have got.
So, like, because then when we get to the future and Broom's talking about not being there and all this other stuff, it's even heavier for Hellboy. And it makes even more sense when John Myers just doesn't show up in part 2. So, like, it didn't. This is where he has to go, and then we can eliminate this whole other scene, which is my least favorite scene in the film.
Hellboy hears shots go off and knows Clay is in trouble, but Gas Mask doesn't escape. He lays down next to Clay and also makes pretend he's dead. Hellboy finds Clay's dead body and calls for help.
Yeah, it's so cool. He pulls out this like little like dial thing, right? And like
He sticks in his chest and he like cranks it up.
it's
Or,
very
like,
cool.
Yeah, it's
I've
pretty
never
nice.
seen anything like that before in a character. It's pretty incredible considering he's like human based too. Yeah, very bizarre.
Back at the bureau, they got Fish Dude in his recovery tank. Grumpy Thomas Manning, my buddy, my homie Jeffrey Tambor. Check him out on our socials at In Madness Pod. He's smoking a cigar. He's like, Fishman will make it. 2 agents died. Clay probably won't make it through the night. He's angrily telling this to Hellboy. He's
Yeah,
reckless.
it's bad. He's reckless. It was his fault.
He says, you were supposed
Right?
to
He
lead
took
this
off.
team. Where were you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And also we got Abe in, making a Star Wars reference like I always do. He's in the back of the tank healing just like Luke was in Empire He's in there healing from his injuries in Return of the Jedi. So we get that as well.
Hellboy and Manning argue. Manning says this whole bureau is a farce because after you've captured and killed every freak out there, there's still one left. You. Oof. Hellboy gets pissed, picks up this large metal container, and it looks like he's going to clobber Manning with it. And we cut to Liz entering the bureau. She's back. Broom is there to welcome her. She says it's only for the weekend. And the large metal container crashes through a door. Hellboy threw it over Manning, who comes stumbling out, saying he wants Hellboy locked up, and nervously stumbles away with all of his goons.
I'm only here for the weekend because, I burned my other house.
Yeah. I killed. I'm responsible for probably 75 homicides, so I'm just gonna hang out here for the weekend.
Yeah, the people in that facility who were, And was she the only one there with powers?
It's all eviscerated. There's not even bones left of whatever was in there. There probably isn't even rubble.
I really hope there was at least one guy who had water powers or something, and he just made
who made it through. Or
maybe they were all out on a field trip when it happened, Shawn.
Yeah,
they go on field trips
at 3 o'clock in the morning when she was asleep. Yeah.
They're coming back from their Barnes and Noble field trip.
Fuck yeah. Myers and Broom and Liz all see all this chaos. They get ashamed at Hellboy and they walk away. But Hellboy is stoked that Liz has returned.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Hellboy in his room, listening to Al Green, Let's Stay Together, an absolute classic, which I know from the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, which I cannot wait to cover that movie. The only over 3-hour movie I want to cover on this podcast, mainly so I can add the entire soundtrack to the In Madness Spotify playlist because it's friggin' brilliant. However, for now, I'm just going to add this Al Green song since it's featured in this movie, Hellboy.
Nice. And bad news for you. I have multiple.
I know. And we'll have to do it. We just got to space them bitches out because that is a lot of time. Hellboy is writing love letters to Liz. They are scattered all over his room, as is his food and his 100 cats. Mm-hmm. Liz walks in. Hellboy nervously gets up and starts kicking the mess of all the letters around nervously. Liz can't believe all of his cats. Hellboy wants to profess his love, but she's like, can you make it quick? I'm going out for coffee with Agent John Myers.
Boo.
Cock block.
Come on, Myers. Really?
What a jabroni. Professor Brew. I mean, and very poorly, he must know Hellboy is madly in love, and you're gonna mess with a dude like that. And
well, let's just say too, he just got there.
Yeah.
Myers just got there. He doesn't even really know his coworkers yet.
Yeah, he's an intern
probably
still.
Not even finished his training videos he had to watch.
And he's hitting on the heroes.
And if we take it as Hellboy is kind of the linchpin of the BPRD in this film, then that's the big guy, and you're going after his girlfriend. It's has Myers never seen a girl before? What is your plan? How do you hope this to end? I don't know.
He sucks. Yeah. Professor Broom is doing an autopsy on Gas Mask, who's covered by a tarp. Broom is recording his findings. He says Gas Mask suffered from a masochistic compulsion, surgical addiction, eyelids surgically removed, along with his upper and lower lip. The whole scene is pretty gnarly. We see Gas Mask's body just all chewed up and scarred.
Mm-hmm.
Broom says the blood in his veins dried up decades ago. Only dust remains. So I guess when he was getting shot, that sand was coming out. It was just dust, which is cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. He's a very cool character.
He's one of the coolest characters in this movie.
Yeah.
Even though he's a fucking piece of trash. He pulls this contraption out of his Gas Mask chest. It's this wind-up device he's been using throughout the film. Not sure what for, but as Broom pulls it out, the device is still sort of spinning and winding and ticking. What type of horror could keep such a creature as this alive?
I know, Shawn. It's a metronome. I know your love of metronome.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
It's a mystical metronome. Metronome.
And that's your music lesson for the day. Broom finds a note that Gas Mask took before he left the boiler room, 2 torn up pieces of paper. Agent Myers and Liz are out on their date, talking about Hellboy. She tells him he's always on my mind, and Myers seems jealous.
Oh,
There's Hellboy spying on them during their date. Liz takes Myers' pictures, so Hellboy freaks out. Tries to jump across a building, but slips, catches the corner of the building, and pulls himself up. And a kid tending to his pigeons on the roof is stoked to see Hellboy, who tells him he's on a mission and to keep his mouth shut.
oof. So let's just stop there and say we need to cut this entire scene out of this film. I wrote in my notes, here goes the most annoying part of the film. Can't stand the date with Myers and Liz. Can't stand this little boy on the roof with his chocolate chip cookies or whatever they are later on. I need none of this. I think Myers goes and we just get them having a complicated relationship. Hellboy, can it be just complicated enough that he's a big red monster? Like, that's enough complication for me without including someone else. I think that this just an unnecessary love triangle, and I think it also minimizes Liz. Like, they bring in the comics, she's a force, man, and in this it's just she's the girl they're fighting for. Like, we saw her blow up the place, but she doesn't seem like an effective member of the BPRD, and I think this just makes her, it lessens it even more to this goofy love triangle, and nobody likes Myers at all. I don't know anyone who does. This is the part that, Mrs. Vertebrae goes nuts about. Just can't stand it. Can't stand this guy. Totally unnecessary. And also makes Hellboy look weak, like pacing up and down on the roof, and his problems with being who he is are much deeper than this. They're his very existence means that the apocalypse might show up. Like, that's pretty deep, rather than just, a dude wandering around on the roof talking to some little kid about how he,
chasing chicks.
This girl doesn't understand him. I just thought that we lightened up enough in this film. I didn't think we needed to do it with this.
Jabroni behavior. Back at the bureau, Broom is inspecting the note. It says Sebastian Plakba, number 16 in Moscow. He says, who wants us in Moscow?
Yeah, and it's funny. It actually translates to Graveyard 16, not Sebastian Plakba 16. I don't know if they did that on purpose or whatever, but yeah.
Back on the operating table, alone, we see Gas Mask, who begins breathing and rises up in a 90-degree angle like Michael Myers. The tarp covering him is clear. He's kind of wearing it like Michael Myers was wearing the sheet when he was the ghost. You could see all the Gas Mask twisted features on his face. It's pretty creepy. He recovers all his equipment and is now ready for battle. Back on the roof, Hellboy and the kid are watching Liz and Myers, and he's bringing them cookies and milk, and Myers is doing the yawn maneuver and putting his arm around Liz. Hellboy's throwing rocks at him. Back to the bureau. Terrible.
This whole section, you can tell that my love for Hellboy and the character Hellboy, and you've said it in part 1, like my love of this film. But as you can tell as we go along now, Shawn, and I didn't want to correct you in part 1, my love of this film and aspects of it are based off of all of the cool bits that are rolled in that are heavier, like they would be in the comics, and less hokey like they are at points in this film. So I love this film because it's one of the best interpretations of Hellboy, but it comes up short in a lot of areas with sort of the extra goofiness of it.
I fully agree. Back at the bureau, Professor Broom gets surrounded by Gas Mask and Rasputin. Tells him he is leading Hellboy to Moscow using the pieces of paper, using Liz, and says the last piece of the puzzle will be delivered by the late Professor Broom. Rasputin says since Broom raised Hellboy, he will give him a glimpse of the future. We see what looks like Judgment Day. Buildings are rubble, barbed wire everywhere, cool octopus tentacles wriggling out of the heavens. Rasputin says Hellboy will open the portal, bring about the end of the world. If only you had him destroyed 60 years ago, none of this would come to pass. We see Hellboy, horns fully grown, looking like the devil. Rasputin says he knows Hellboy's true name, and Broom says, I call him son.
Yeah, this is very dramatic, but listen, having this happen, why Hellboy's more worried about Liz and John Myers getting coffee together, is certainly a way to do it. But I think it's dramatic enough. We've now made Hellboy incompetent twice in this film, right? He disappeared before to go see Liz, and people died, and now he's disappearing again, and other things are going to happen. So, yeah, just not so much a fan. I hate harping on it, but I just, in this environment, this stuff with Rasputin, this stuff with Cronin, this stuff about seeing the apocalypse, this all rules. Yeah, this is heavy. This is what we need. I wonder, 2004, they make this film. It's gotta kind of, your memory was like, hey, where does it fit in with Spider-Man and all these other films? You can see where they're trying to do some of that and kind of trying to balance the weight of what this is in the comics and what it is for a character versus, what they have to do to get people to see this on a Friday and a Saturday night and, cover their expenses. But, and I think part of it is we called him GDT. I think part of it is GDT trying to put a spin on it to maybe breathe some life into some characters in different ways that aren't in the books. And he certainly goes one way with it, with this love triangle. But I think it diminishes sort of this weight and all this other really cool, very Lovecraftian visions and everything.
Broom says he's ready. Rasputin tells him it'll be quick. Gas mask sticks a blade right through Broom's neck. Dead. Rest in peace, Professor Broom.
Yeah, and they do respect him. The fact that he said, like, this will be quick.
Yeah, they were cool to him about it, I guess.
I thought that was, and I guess we're supposed to have Broom be sick. So, it feels like, well, he was probably going to go anyway, I guess. Like, I don't know why we had him be sick if we're just going to kill him off this other way. In the comics, he's attacked by a bunch of frogs and like falls out this window and stuff with like all these like and Hellboy's there. And it's pretty dramatic that he's there and he can't do anything about it as well. But
on the rooftop, the kid is trying to give Hellboy tips on how to score with Liz. Bunch of FBI cars pull up to Myers and Liz and tell them bad news. Hellboy sees they're in distress and knows something's wrong. Back at the bureau, it's now a crime scene. Hellboy arrives, falls to his knees, and dramatically gives Broom one final hug. Big funeral, pouring rain. He
grabs the rosary, right? Does he grab it then? He grabs the rosary.
I think so. He's got it when he's in this like dramatic rain scene at the big funeral, standing on the roof, watching everything happen. Is Hellboy holding Broom's rosary beads?
Yeah, so a dramatic overhead shot of all the umbrellas, which is a really cool visual, like very beautifully shot with all the rain and the overhead view of the umbrellas. Really don't understand why Myers is one of the pallbearers.
He's still an intern.
I don't get it. He just got there. Conceivably, and in the comics, they've been together for a long time working together. This whole BPRD crew. And these were the only, we added him into the mix for that.
I was surprised Hellboy wasn't one of them, or just the sole one.
Yeah, and I guess that shot is meant to be he just can't
bear the pain of it all.
I guess there's a piece to it too that they kind of like, it could touch on about how he's not, he's not human and he's not one of the humans and he doesn't really fit in with human society. And that's heavy in the books, but not in this movie. So I think if you knew that, it's kind of like, well, he doesn't fit in and he can't handle it to be part of it, although he's watching it. But he just doesn't kind of still fit in with the rest of the team to be a part of that stuff, even though he has such a connection to Broom. It's very strange. I guess I'm thinking they just wanted to have that really cool dramatic shot of him in the rain. holding the rosary. But yeah, Myers has got to go, Shawn. He's got to go.
By Hellboy's hands.
Yes.
Now Hellboy isn't speaking. He's not eating. Liz is worried. She's discussing with Fishman if she should stay. He's in his tank doing a Rubik's Cube and says, I'm no good at solving problems. It's been 3 decades. I've only completed 2 sides of this cube. But when things go wrong, all us freaks have is each other.
Yeah, wouldn't the Rubik's Cube be peeling? Wouldn't the stickers be peeling off that by now under the water?
The one waterproof one. If they have all this advanced technology, is like, get me a waterproof cube, please.
Are you good at Rubik's Cube?
No, I watched those fucking kids do them on TikTok, and like they time them, and like they hit the timer and they hit the timer again, and it's like done. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just like in less than like 3 seconds, they go whap, 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 done. And I'm like, and then that I feel like that knowledge diminished Fishman's knowledge to me, because I was like, this guy's a dumbass.
Yeah, again, that's something he probably didn't need. He's much, Abe Sapien is much more powerful, much more of a big part in the comics too. They've really lessened Liz to some extent. Hellboy, all these characters have all taken kind of a step back in how competent they are.
I guess it's just movie antics.
Yeah.
Grumpy Manning is now using the findings on the piece of paper from Gas Mask to go to Moscow to find Sebastian Plakba number 18, or as you said, grave number 16.
Yeah.
16.
Yep.
He says Hellboy is coming. Manning is not happy about it, but says he's running this operation and they either wrap all this up or he's closing down this freak show for good. Grumpy son of a bitch. Liz finds Hellboy and tells him she'll go to Moscow with him. He admits to her he can't be with her if she doesn't feel normal around him. He tells her Agent Myers is good for her and can make her feel normal in the outside world.
Ugh.
Hellboy wishes he could fix his face, remove his horns, but he promises he will never give up on Liz. The team flies to Moscow. They get these massive grenades. They're going to blow up whatever they find with. Pull up to a graveyard. Look for Sebastian Plakba number 16, grave 16. Grumpy Manning doesn't know where the hell to look, but Hellboy does. He uses his tracker to find a talker. His device leads him to a grave where he jumps in, rips open the coffin, exposing a corpse, which he hangs a little crystal in front of and does some sort of abracadabra, bringing the corpse back to life, asking Hellboy what he wants.
I love this, and I love his relationship with him and how much he hates him, as when he's talking. I think this is very cool. This is neat.
And it was at this point, my friend, when I got up and walked out of the movie theater.
That was too much for you? Do you remember?
I don't know why. I just remember being like, man, fuck this stupid movie, and getting up and walking out.
Oh my God.
I was just a young, bitter kid for no reason.
So this is 21 years ago. 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And when was it that you finally watched the rest of this film?
For this podcast.
That is awesome. I love that. Listen, the last movie you did, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I famously said, right? I don't remember ever watching it all the way through. So back to back, we got a film you didn't watch all the way through.
For 2 years, I have made you watch some of the most stupid ass, ridiculous movies, and you've patiently done it all. And when we picked Hellboy, I was like, for Vertebrae, I will do anything. So
that's awesome.
And the In Madness family voted. So it's like, you guys want this dumbass movie, so I'm going to sit and
here's
go
the thing
through it with you guys.
There
are parts of it I enjoy.
Nothing dumb about Hellboy. I'm going to make you a Hellboy fan.
So I'll get into it at the end. I'll let you know like what my full because the way I feel this way, because I feel like this is your Ninja Turtles, because like this is like ingrained in your soul, and for me this was like less. I didn't.
Somewhat.
We'll get into it later.
Somewhat, but as you can tell as we go through part 2, it wasn't. I don't know if it has that same weight for me, because I'm able to. There's a lot of hokey stuff in here that I'm been pointing out in the part 2.
So you probably liked this movie a lot more before we started reviewing.
That's, Sean, that may be the problem, because we look at these
ruined the
things a certain
movie.
way, and then I examine it again. But listen, all of the, I have the art of book and all of the making of it into these creatures, and my love of Mignola's art, and I love this version of Hellboy, and all this stuff we get to in this snowy graveyard is very cool, and all of the Lovecraftian beasties, and we're gonna get more of them, is very awesome. It's just, and that's why I'm gonna loan you the animated things. You can watch them because they're very cool. But I think that's where just it got Hollywoodized in a lot of ways, and that's where I those are my least favorite parts of this. If this movie stops halfway through and there's no John Myers, and we just have all this incredible backstory and the Nazis and Hellboy coming out, and this Lovecraftian monsters, I got no issue with it, but maybe the general public would have. I don't know. But yes, Sean, watching these things for In Madness have ruined parts of films for me, because I've got to look at them as, I have to be honest with myself. If I'm going to assess Turtles in a way where I'm making fun of Splinters constantly commenting about dying, then I certainly have to talk about, Hellboy in the roof, a little kid having cookies and milk, throwing rocks at John Myers. Like that, there's no way. I can't ignore that. Doesn't take away from my love overall, or my love of our new buddy we just met here in this scene. It's very dramatic in the snow and very cool, but In Madness has ruined me for a lot of movies, I think.
Thanks, In Madness. You're the best. A movie podcast that ruins movies.
But not for us. Everyone else loves them more, right? We turn people on to new movies all the time.
And that's that I love. Grumpy Manning is telling the rest of his team he's in charge, not Hellboy. But up walks Hellboy with half of this dude's corpse strapped to his back, telling him where to find Sebastian Plakba. They head into a mausoleum, which the corpse says has a bunch of hidden tunnels. They walk for miles. They head into this enormous chamber. Hellboy says, "We'll be all right as long as we don't separate." And wouldn't you know it, at that very moment, all these walls pop up, separating them, and spikes come out of the walls.
Yeah.
However, they're not completely blocked off. Each team has to go down their own separate corridor. Hellboy and his corpse and grumpy-ass Manning and a soldier are crossing this enormous bridge. The doors seal behind them so they can't escape. All these enormous gears begin moving. Hellboy wants to keep going, but Manning says to go back. As Manning is yelling and screaming at Hellboy, this massive stone comes crashing through, colliding with the bridge, knocking the soldier and the corpse that Hellboy had off the bridge, falling to their death.
Yeah, I think that's more like maybe it's like a pendulum. I'm thinking that it keeps swinging, and this results in some very hokey running by Hellboy that we're about to get, and this is just, it's very weird, a kind of cartoon style. Also, they're so unprepared, the BPRD and these no-name jabronis, as you would call them. Nobody even thinks that maybe this is a trap, that we're just heading down into here and we think it's a trap. Like, I know this is very Indiana Jones, but like, he seems very prepared for what's going to happen to him, and everyone in this crew seems like totally unprepared for what's going to happen.
We're listening to a corpse he just pulled out of the ground. That's who's leading this operation.
Which, honestly, like, I don't hate that part of it, but I hate that they're unprepared for anything else. Or yes, they had no other plan when they got there. Like, okay, we're here, but like,
we're here, and then they can't even find the grave. They're just walking around in circles.
Yeah.
Now Manning is petrified. Hellboy notices the door ahead of them closing, so he takes Manning and chucks him through the door before it closes. It's closing pretty quick. Hellboy, still on the bridge, sees another enormous massive stone heading straight toward him. He dives out of the way. The bridge is crumbling, so Hellboy makes a run for it and manages to, through all of this time, slide under the same door that was closing really fast a second ago, that Thomas Manning just got thrown into.
Yeah, and he gets his tail curls so it doesn't get, the door doesn't slam down. That's very Indiana Jones. Yeah, 100%. Slide through, then grab the hat.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to.
Simpsons episode as well.
Yeah, they're trying to do that to just, again, appease sort of the general public. It's these parts. It's so beautifully, like, artistically rendered too. Like, this bridge and everything around it is just so cool looking. this movie is really cool looking. And if you look at the art of book, you'll see all the sketches that they worked on and all the production stuff. I just, this is where I'm sure this bothered. Well, you didn't see this in the theater, and I think it would have bothered you even more.
I'm thinking about it. It's very funny that this podcast and the education I've received from it over these last 2 years made me enjoy this movie a lot more now watching it than I did 21 years ago. Because of all
And
the
also,
Lovecraftian darkness and all that, like stuff that I know about now that 20 years ago I wasn't as hip to.
and just, we'll go inside baseball. But when we started this podcast, I'm not a negative person on things. And Shawn had to sort of almost pull out my opinions on things in some ways and be like, no, it's okay if you like that, but it's okay if you don't like that part. And you can talk about the part you don't like without it being you're insulting somebody, the filmmaker, the director, the actor, the artists that work on it. So you'll notice that that has changed a lot for me over the last couple of years, where it's like, okay, if we're going to do this and I'm going to honestly assess my thoughts on it and you care about it enough to listen, just because I love the film on a whole, I shouldn't ignore, the hokier bits in it. Right. And then glom onto them on films that I'm not as crazy about. That seems unfair. So it's forced me to be more honest and realize that my opinion in it, it's not negative. It's just part of it I don't like. Right. I had a 5-course meal and I wasn't crazy about the dessert or something, and that's okay.
Check out our 0.5 episode talking about Exorcist Believer, as well as our Nightmare on Elm Street sequel extravaganza episode, where we cover movies that we strictly do not like.
Yes, but still try to have fun with them. And
yes, it was recently the anniversary of the fan favorite, the third Nightmare on Elm Street. Dream Warriors, I think, is that one.
You don't remember? You've already been.
No, my God, no. I that info dumped out of my brain the second we ended that episode.
Yeah.
They hear music, it leads them to gas masks, sitting listening to a record. There's spikes popping out of the wall, and this asshole Manning gets stuck by a spike and goes, ouch! Like a chode. Hellboy angrily looks back at him like, shut up, and turns back around, and gas mask is now gone. Pops out to stab Manning, but for some reason, Hellboy steps in the way and stops him and battles it out with Gas Mask, who slices Hellboy's nose. He gets pissed because Gas Mask killed his dad, Professor Broom, and beats his face in with his enormous Hellboy fist, denting his mask. But Gas Mask is unfazed by any of this and begins laughing, quite like the Joker in the Batman movies.
Right, and Manning's like, ow, like, hey, when he slices him, like, almost like, hey, why would you do that? That's a little silly.
Hellboy's like, what are you laughing at? And immediately a trap gets triggered, opening the floor below him, sending Hellboy and Manning into this pit of spikes. Manning grabs the edge of the floor and crawls out of the trap before falling in, as Hellboy is hanging onto a rope from the ceiling just a few feet away from the spikes at the bottom of the pit. Gas Mask goes to cut the rope, and this dude Manning takes a gear laying around and chucks it at Gas Mask's face like a frisbee, stopping him in his tracks, and goes, don't even think about it, which I thought was very friggin' cool.
Yeah.
He hates Hellboy. He's been an asshole for 83% of this movie, and now he has his, like, hero's journey.
Well, Hellboy saved his life back to back. So
Hellboy takes a rope, makes a lasso out of it, and chucks it around Gas Mask's neck. He pulls Gas Mask into the pit. Hellboy pulls himself out and chucks Gas Mask into all the spikes below, but he will not die. So Hellboy picks up this enormous gear, throws it on top of Gas Mask, sandwiching his ass onto the spikes.
Yeah, and what's funny is right after he does that, then Manning throws like his little gears that he had into the pile. I actually thought that was really funny, that he's like, okay, yeah, you threw this little gear to stop him for a second. Now I'm going to throw this other one to smash this bag of dust away. And then I'll steal your thunder, but they have a moment where they're lighting the cigar, and he's, you got to light the cigar with a match instead of a lighter.
It preserves the flavor.
Yeah, and in the comics, he smokes a cigarette, not a cigar. They changed it to a cigar for the film. But this is
Bonding.
them.
Yeah.
They're having a nice little bonding moment here for sure.
This was like my favorite part of the whole movie, I think.
Really?
No, well, the fight scenes, I like the practical effects fight scene in the subway. I like some of the monster stuff. There's just whatever. We'll get into it in a couple pages. Below Hellboy can hear Liz and Agent Myers talking. They step into a corridor and are shocked to find a bunch of hellhounds hovering over a bunch of eggs. When they turn around to leave, the door closes behind them and they're trapped. They have the grenades and they're ready to blow this bitch up like Ripley and Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
The hellhounds surround Myers and Liz, but here comes Hellboy to the rescue, kicking ass, taking names. As he's fighting, we see all these little hellhound eggs bursting open and little babies rolling out.
Yeah, but before that, we have this awkward moment where Myers is talking to her about her liking him, sort of, and she's like, guys are all the same type thing. That was just, that was when I was hoping one of the spikes in the tunnel would just go right through Myers. We just end this right now.
Hellboy gets outnumbered and starts being overrun with hellhounds till Liz bursts into an enormous ball of fire and torches everything. The hellhounds, the eggs, the entire room, but not Agent Myers.
No, he just hides behind a rock and like he survives. But then we get our firewoman, Shawn. Firewoman. We get her.
Myers wakes up. We hear Ilsa's voice. They are all here, all of them. Rasputin says, just the way it was promised. Myers sees Ilsa has all of the grenades. They lock Myers up in cuffs. Hellboy is restrained in a rack with his head and arms locked up, and Liz is laid out on a stone as Rasputin is doing some witchcraft.
Mm-hmm. It's like the stocks, like the old
like
stocks.
The head, like they used to throw tomatoes at and stuff.
Yeah, and then it has all these symbols around it to kind of lock in the right hand of doom. So that's pretty cool.
He has a door, a large stone, sent by the Ogdru Jihad, so they may at long last enter the world.
Mm-hmm.
Ilsa tells Hellboy he is the key, the right hand of doom. What did you think your giant stone hand was made for?
Right. And so in the comics, his original arm was lopped off when he was a baby, and that right hand of doom was grafted on. The arm's original owner was Anum, which is one of the greater spirits, and he created these jihad dragons, and he was destroyed by other people, and the right hand is the only thing that remains of him. According to Rasputin, right, it's going to reveal and open this gate. And then the creature on the other side of this is they've said is none other than Yog Sothoth, who is a Lovecraftian creature. So that's pretty cool.
Also sounds like a black metal band you listen to.
For sure. Yeah.
Ilsa says Hellboy can create Eden for himself and Liz. He refuses. Rasputin says, open the door in exchange for her soul. Hellboy refuses. Rasputin grabs Liz by the neck and sucks her soul out of her mouth like Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat.
I have in my notes, and then he steals Liz's minty fresh breath. It just feels like those gum commercials.
The green smoke. Hellboy's freaking out. Rasputin tells Hellboy her soul awaits on the other side. If you want her back, open the door and claim her. Rasputin tells Hellboy his true name is inscribed around the locks that hold them. You cannot break them no matter how strong you are. An eclipse begins. Rasputin screams at Hellboy, your true name, say it. Rasputin tears Professor Broom's rosary beads off Hellboy's arm and throws them. He tells him, become the key. Hellboy sits back defeated and says he'll do it for Liz. Rasputin says, Anung Un Rama. Tells Hellboy to repeat it. He does, and the locks break off.
Yeah, but what's the end game for this, for Hellboy? All right, so you want to save Liz, but now like the apocalypse is coming. Right, these creatures are going to come through the gate and the portal and take over everything. So you're only saving her for like a limited amount of time, I think. Right, or you're going to spend your entire lives on the run.
Stupid.
Yeah.
His horn nubs begin to smoke. The eclipse turns everything red. Hellboy's horns are growing. He sticks his hand in the stone, opening up the gateway to Armageddon. In space, we see these enormous creatures breaking free from captivity in this floating structure, which originally I thought was a ship, but turns out it's this being that's beyond human comprehension.
Right. Also, what did you say? Gateway to Annihilation?
Gateway to Armageddon, another good
Band name. That's another good
or
band
album
name.
title. Yeah,
That's the first album title by my band, Yog Sothoth.
you got
Probably a
side
band.
projects now.
Yeah, that's a side. I went solo, from the other guys. Yeah.
The tentacles come out of the cloud. What other guy? You are also the only guy in micro changes.
Oh yeah, I quit my own. I quit my own band. Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
a conflict of interest. Yeah.
Yeah. What I did was I recorded an album in Queens, New
Creative
York,
differences with yourself.
and then I sent myself back on a bus to to California when I kicked myself out of the band. Right, very Dave Mustaine-ish.
Yeah.
They kicked me out.
The tentacles come out of the clouds and begin descending to Earth. Agent Myers manages to pick up Professor Broom's rosary beads off the floor. Rasputin tells Hellboy, open the final lock. He's about to do it, but Agent Myers, the voice of reason, says, remember who you are. Throws Hellboy the beads. He catches them, and the crucifix burns into his hand. Ilsa goes to knock out Myers, but he leg sweeps her and clobbers her in the face with his boot. Angrily, Rasputin tells Hellboy he's lived long enough to know not a tear will shed for the world. Myers tells Hellboy his father gave him a choice. Hellboy rips his horns off his head, stopping Armageddon, and stabs Rasputin right in the gut with one of the horns and drops them both and walks off. Before dying, Rasputin tells Hellboy he will never fulfill his destiny or understand the power he holds. Hellboy doesn't care. He just wants Liz.
Yeah, also, before he dies, let's put that in quotes, because this guy's died and come back like a gazillion times. And I'm going to tell you, I know right off the bat, one of the things that you're not crazy about in this film is, one, it's not dark enough. It's a little hokey. And it ends with such a lovey-dovey ending.
Well, I didn't even reach that part.
And Shawn would rather them, turn this into the Mist at the end.
Not everything can be the Mist, because then the Mist is not as special.
But something much darker.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Rasputin tells Hellboy he's only killed him as a man, and now he's brought forth a god. Tentacle bursts out of Rasputin's chest like the Thing. Hellboy and Myers get the hell out of there. This large octopus alien creature slithers out of Rasputin's body. Sort of looks like the squid creature from Prometheus at the end.
Yeah. All of these tentacle beasties based off of Lovecraftian monsters and outer gods and, cosmic deities in the Lovecraftian universe as well. The Yog-Sothoth first mentioned in the the Case of Charles Dexter Ward. I was like, the Curious Case
of Benjamin Button.
Yeah, but that's probably where they got that from. And then also was kind of the driving force in the Dunwich Horror, another really good Lovecraftian story. So this is where all of this is based on. So, I love myself some the tentacle beast for sure.
There's lots of it in here. Ilsa tells Rasputin hell will hold no surprises for us. They kiss, and the giant creature smashes them both with its enormous tentacle. Agent Myers tells Hellboy he took a grenade belt, but it's broken. Hellboy puts down Liz and tells Myers, take care of her. You're an okay guy, Myers. You should stick around.
Don't like that at all. Don't like that at all.
Myers tosses Hellboy the grenades, asks if he'll be okay alone, and Hellboy says, how big can it be? And as he's saying this, an enormous tentacle comes slithering down the hallway, snatches Hellboy, and drags him all the way back. Creature's smashing him around. Hellboy drops the grenades. It slams him on the floor. He finds his big sword attached to a statue. Hellboy takes his sword and starts slicing away at this thing's tentacles. Hellboy retrieves the grenades as the monster picks him up and swallows him. Hellboy pulls the pin on the grenades, which explode inside the monster, spilling Hellboy out, blowing tentacles and blue guts everywhere.
Yeah.
Goes back to check on Myers and Liz. Liz has no pulse. No. Hellboy kneels down and whispers to her, and she comes back to life. Yay!
And I will say, at least this part, Shawn, what he's about to say has a little resonance with the comics, because, certainly I'll let you explain the line, and then we'll go into it.
She tells him she heard his voice in the dark. She
Mhm.
asks what he said. He said, "Hey, you on the other side, let her go, because for her, I'll cross over, and then you'll be sorry." Ugh.
Yes. So he definitely has weight in that other, universe or whatever in that existence. So that part is it's hokey the way it's done, but it's kind of cool, but we never see any of that. Like that Hellboy is like such a badass. It's also weird that essentially, he brings her back to life somehow, but also we just needed to like blow this one guy up and then the portal closes and like everything's gonna be fine. That wrapped up a little too easy for me.
Hellboy and Liz make out, bursting into flames, and poor Myers stands there sad watching them. What makes a man a man? A friend of mine once wondered. His origins, the way he comes to life, I don't think so. It's the choices he makes, not how he starts things, but how he decides to end them. Aw, fade to black, the end.
Hate that part. Because not only is it odd narration from a character that we don't like that was added into this lore, but he's essentially taking Broom's place because we hear narration from him in the beginning of the film. So we bookend it with that. And it's just, this whole love will conquer all type thing that we want to give in this message. When the truth is, and when you go through the comics, it's like this stuff never dies. It's going to keep going on. This fight is constant. The weight of this and these outer gods and everything else is constant. Hellboy's twisted feelings for being who he is in a human world is constant. What this needed after this was something heavy that took place to let you know that this is not all wrapped up, that this is the beginning of a battle that they're
Well,
going to have to
we get a
take care
post-credit scene
of. Mm-hmm.
of grumpy-ass Manning, who is still in the mausoleum, and says a message to the team, "Hey guys, I'm still here." And we hear a hellhound shriek in the distance. Roll credits.
Yeah, I mean we do get that, but that's a hokey post credit scene. Like, hey guy, like help me out. Like I don't know, that was the first half of this film has so much weight to it, and then the second half just erases all of that weight. So I think I've done part of your job for you already,
There we
Shawn.
go. Episode 40, part 1 and 2. You wanted it. You got it. Hellboy.
I still love this. I still love this
Part
movie.
of
I
that.
do have issues with it, but I still love a lot of this movie. I love all the Lovecraft stuff. Hellboy, I think Perlman does a fantastic job. All the practical effects. But now, the moment I've been waiting for, what does Shawn not like
So, like, here's the
about
deal.
this film?
I grew up with comics. Like, I was a nerd. Like, I grew up with Marvel and DC and all that. This is also like my 20s, and my friends are playing jokes on each other. We go to movies, and they walk out of a movie that I like to be assholes. So then we went to go see this movie because another friend wanted to see it. So I walked out of it to be an asshole to their movie. That was just some get back stuff. But like, yeah, like you said, it's like too brightly lit. It's too dark. I'm not huge Guillermo del Toro because after our previous episode, and you're sitting there listing movies, and I'm like, nah. Now you listed all of his movies, and I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of any of these. It's just this was around the time of like, and like in our first episode, I'm like, this is a superhero movie, and like you're like, no, this is not a superhero movie, and like I feel like you have a different attachment to it than I do because I knew nothing of Hellboy.
Mhm.
The movie comes out, I'm like, who is this guy? I know Image, I know Spawn, I know Marvel, I know DC. I am not ingrained in the comic culture, I guess, as much as you are at this point. I have no idea who Hellboy is. I'm sitting watching this movie, and yeah, there's things I can appreciate now about it, but then I didn't appreciate it at all. The practical effects I thought were cool, but I thought so much of this movie was so and still do goddamn cheesy. Like it
Mhm.
just seems to
But
reach
you
the
love cheesy
and that's the
movies.
thing. Like it
Like,
reeks
you had me watch Killer Clowns
it
from Outer
reeks of
Space.
a
That is one
different
big,
kind of
giant
cheese.
pile of cheese.
Yeah, but like it's got like this wholesomeness about it that I
So that
feel
part,
like
yes, that's added in, and that's GDT adding that in. But,
yeah.
like, I guess I'm okay with the cheese because the bread is so
Yeah.
good on this cheese sandwich.
Yes.
The foundation is so good. So then I kind of we all do that. We look the other way when, band puts out an album and we just love that band and everybody's like, that album's no good. That album's no good. I don't like it. And you're like, and you want to like it more and more because of of who they are. And I think I'm going to turn you into a Hellboy comic fan. That's my plan. And later on in these episodes, we're going to do a point five where we can kind of discuss Mignola and Hellboy comics. Maybe we can have somebody on. Listen, I'd love to have Mignola on. I think that would be incredible if we could somehow get him on. But yes, I am looking the other way when I say how much I love this movie because I'm looking straight at the creatures. I'm looking straight at Hellboy. I'm looking straight at the design. Mignola being one of my favorite artists of all time and continues to be. That's what I'm looking at. But yes, when you read these books and these comics, there is a weight in them and there's a life in them that does not exist. This is the Saturday morning cartoon version of the character that you like so much. And there's parts of it that are fantastic. I do now, having split this movie in half, Shawn, it is so front loaded with the coolest stuff.
And the whole
And
back
it's
end is like the
and it's so
lovey-dovey
backloaded with the
jargon.
lovey-dovey
Yeah.
love triangle, love conquers all. The guy who can't burn up because he lives in hell is in love with the girl who can burst into flames, right? What is the coincidence of that? And then they can stay together and they can, make out, and she can burst into flames while they're making out, and it doesn't affect him because he's from the depths of hell. That is, what they had to do to make this film. But yeah, damn it,
I mean,
looking
and
at these
listen,
movies with in madness eyes, Shawn, it's just ruined it for me.
yeah, ruined the movie that Vertebrae love, but it's understandable because like the comic books is where it's at for you, and like that whole
Yes.
beginning, that's where it's at for you. But like, not to compare and contrast, but like out of comparison, like Watchmen, okay. I didn't know a goddamn thing about the Watchmen. I had no idea who the Watchmen were. And like they were DC or whatever. And even being a DC fan, I had no idea who like, or maybe they weren't DC, but I'm pretty sure it was. But like,
It was
I went and
DC.
saw
Yep.
that movie. Please, I went and saw the movie. I've watched the movie since then, probably like 25 times. And then on HBO Max, they just put out like the comic book version, which is very different than the movie. And
Yes.
it goes through the comic book like it's a movie. That's, I think, even better than the movie because it doesn't have anything taken out of it. It's the little comic book. And they had the episodic series, and I thought that was fucking cool too. I think The Watchmen is like one of the greatest comic or any type like graphic novel story ever told. The layering, the weaving, the
Oh, that's
intertwining.
Alan Moore,
Yes.
and that's
Yes. I
and I
just
will
feel like
say
Hellboy doesn't have, for me, any of what Watchmen did.
it does in the comics, but
I
you've not read
guess.
the comics,
Yes.
right? So you're only
Yes.
seeing the GDT's translation of it.
Yes.
And it's a different type of story, but this, all the myths that he rolls into these books and everything else is just incredible. When I get a few in your hands, you'll read them, and I think you'll fall in line a little more with the books. When we get to Watchmen, we can talk about it. I do like the movie, although the movie suffers a little bit from the Zack Snyder-ness of it all at times. And there was certainly, when you have a book like that that's so dramatic in culture and such a big deal when those issues are coming out and it's Alan Moore and everybody is incredibly into it, that you're gonna, when you make it a movie, you struggle sometimes to translate what's really cool in the books. And you know now this feels to me like two films. This feels to me like the first half of this film and then the second half of this film. I'm even okay when we meet Myers in the beginning and he's our gateway to this world and the BPRD. But, you know, having broken this apart and now watched it like 3 times in succession, it's just some things fall flat. And listen, it is 21 years old now, and maybe it would have been done in a different way. It had to fit into pop culture at that time. They needed this movie to be a certain way so they could make another one and hopefully a third one, which they never got to. And I get that, but this obviously doesn't diminish my love of Hellboy or Mignola's comics in any way, but I can see why. At first we talked about it, I was like, "Come on, Joe, what are you talking about? Like all the ingredients are there."
And they are, and that's the thing about Guillermo del Toro, GDT, as we call him. He has all of the elements that I like, all the monsters and the this and the that. It's just when it comes together, he does it through this lens that I'm like, ew, I don't like this at all. He put all the things I like. It's like all my favorite cereals mixed up, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be great, and then you eat them and like, ew, this is gross.
When we get to Shape of Water, you see him deftly pull off a love story much better than he does with this Hellboy love story, for sure.
Yeah, that's my take on Hellboy. Hopefully I don't have to watch this movie for another 21 years.
Oh, come on, man. Well, you're going to read the books. I can tell you that right now.
I want to know, if you're listening, what you thought about it. Did you get all your gnarly bits in? Are you satisfied with your victorious Hellboy episode?
I'm somewhat satisfied. I think we eventually got to get to part 2. I think we have to cover it. Maybe we do one of those super episodes where we cover part 2. I'll force myself to watch the Stranger Things guy version, which I couldn't make it out of the first 15 minutes of that film when I tried to watch it.
Maybe we just do a part 2.5 or something. I don't know.
Right, and we do part 2, and we do that, and then maybe if the Crooked Man drops, because I know Mignola's had a lot more involvement in the Crooked Man, and it's supposed to be a lot darker than this, so maybe we can touch on that. But I don't think we should be done with both GDT or Hellboy at all. But you just wait, Shawn. Man, I got films lined up for you,
which is fine. And if the In Madness, family votes for it or whatever, or if you were that hellbent to absolutely cover one, but yeah, I don't know. It just GDT, legendary dude. I like Pan's. There's things that I like, but there's more things that I feel like I probably don't like. I guess I'm more of like a Robert Eggers guy.
What we learned on this episode is there are different types of cheese.
Yeah.
Like certain types of cheese and
cheddar.
And I like other types of cheese.
Gorgonzola.
Right? Oh, see, I can't have gorgonzola. So
Gouda,
there you go.
Blue cheese.
I like blue cheese.
Swiss cheese.
Swiss I like.
See? All these different types of cheeses.
Provolone.
Some of them great. Some cheese is great. Other cheeses.
Feta. I like feta a lot.
Don't shit on gorgonzola. Gorgonzola's you put some gorgonzola on a steak. Chihuahua.
I mean, if you put anything on a steak.
I want to know what you thought of this episode, of any of our episodes on the socials. Hit us at In Madness Pod. Follow us on any of the socials. You can hit us in the mail sack, which we will dive into in the next episode. We will read your email on the air if you want it read. If you don't want it read, put that in the title because we're going to read it on the air.
Yeah, and Shawn,
yeah.
Hold on, I cut you off before you get your end bit. I just want to say, we've asked before, but if people can rate and review our episodes, that'll pump us up on the charts a little bit, so more people see us, so more people can contribute to this. There's going to be in the future soon other ways to support this podcast. I can tell you as of right now, the idea of adding ads into this is not something that's crossed my mind. I don't think I want to do it right now at all, but I think we're going to give other ways for people to support this podcast and be part of the In Madness family. So that stuff helps, get in there. If you listen every week, just click 5 stars on it. If you're somebody who listens every week, you clearly love it. make a comment in Apple. You can rate us on Spotify. If you watch on YouTube, put a comment in there in the YouTube and make that video active for other people to comment and more people watch. And, we got some exciting things coming up in the future. We got a 0.5. Are we going to tell them what movie we're doing next,
We're
Shawn?
going to tease it in the 0.5.
Okay.
Same way we've been teasing them. The next movie is not up to y'all to vote. It is up to me and Vertebrae to vote, and the vote is in, and it won with astounding votes, 2-0. I can't wait for that episode.
I can't wait, but my In Madness brain has already ruined.
No, I just watched it. I just watched it just because I could not wait. I watched it, and I was like, God damn it. I love this movie. I loved it even more the second time watching it. So
yeah, I started to pick things apart a little bit.
Don't tell me anything yet. I don't want to know until we do it. Email us inmadnesspod@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube if you want to bring us to work with you. And check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, give us the 5-star reviews on everything. Like Vertebrae just said, check out the In Madness Spotify playlist, which is now going to hold the cult.
The Cult.
Fire Woman.
Yes, I love.
Yeah.
Shawn is not 100%
Got it right. Tell everybody you know about this show. Spread the word. Get everybody in on the fun so we can all enjoy this together. You can represent for us with one of our cool shirts. You can get it at inmadness.com. It's been an absolute pleasure. We were going to dip into the mail sack next week. And I mean, good. I'm happy we did this episode. I got through it with a smile on my face, and I got to get my opinion out about it. Sorry, because I know a lot of people love this movie, and they're probably sitting there going, what do you mean? They're like, Vertebrae, what are you talking about? You like the Ninja Turtles, and you don't like this shit? But I mean, it's like you said many times throughout these last 2 years in this podcast, it's when it hits you in your life and how it hits you in your life. And I'm glad this hit you so hard because you have just been glistening for the last 2 weeks. I love it.
Well, at least for mostly the first part. I think it started to fall apart
mostly
a
in
little,
part one.
Yeah.
Do you have everything you want for episode 40? Happy episode 40.
I do. Happy episode 40. Happy episode 100.
Oh, fuck. I forgot.
This is our 100th
episode. God damn. Could you imagine 2 years ago when we started this shit? Getting to 100?
We were able to record 100 episodes. I would love to figure out how many hours of actual time that is that we put into it.
And we would have had it last week, but we were sick. So whatever.
Yeah.
We would have hit it earlier. The only time we ever took off.
So 40th in our ridiculously numbered system here, but an actual 100th episode. I think that's a milestone for any podcast to do this for over 2 years and give the 100th episode. Congratulations to us.
Yeah. And
here's to 100 more.
Yeah, goddamn right. We will see you next week. We're not getting out of 40 yet for 40.5 of In Madness Pod.